It was a Tuesday evening and the house was quiet. Laura had gone out with friends, or at least that's what she had told me. I was alone, a rare chance to enjoy some solitude. The house was my sanctuary after the relentless pace of work, and on nights like these, I often found solace in simple tasks, like organizing my study or sorting through old photographs. As I moved through the cluttered desk drawer in my study, searching for a misplaced document, my hand brushed against an envelope that had somehow slipped to the back. It was an envelope I didn't recognize, but the handwriting on it was unmistakably Laura's. Curious, I pulled it out and examined it more closely. It wasn't addressed to anyone but had a return address on the back, an address I vaguely remembered as being Charlie's. My heart skipped a beat. I hesitated for a moment, the rational part of me questioning whether I should open it. After all, snooping felt like a betrayal of trust, but the nagging feeling in my gut urged me to see what was inside. I carefully slit the envelope open and pulled out a stack of photographs. My hands trembled as I began to sift through them. The first few were innocuous, pictures of Laura and her friends at various events. But as I flipped through the stack, my breath caught in my throat. The photos were of Laura and Charlie, seemingly taken over several years. They were not just casual snapshots but intimate moments that suggested a deeper connection. In one photo, Laura and Charlie were sitting closely together at what looked like a cozy cafe, their hands brushing against each other's. In another, they were walking along a beach at sunset, their arms around each other, laughing as if they were the only two people in the world. Each image felt like a stab to my heart, the evidence of a secret relationship that had been hidden from me for years. The last photo was the most incriminating. It was taken in a dimly lit room, likely a hotel room, judging by the bed in the background. Laura and Charlie were in each other's arms, their faces close, their expressions full of affection. The photo was so personal, so intimate, that it felt like an invasion of privacy, my privacy. It was clear that what I was looking at was more than just a friendship, it was an affair that had spanned over 15 years. The reality of what I was seeing hit me hard. The room seemed to spin as I struggled to process the images. My mind raced with questions. How could Laura hide this from me? How could she betray our years together so completely? The evidence was undeniable, and with it came a deep sense of betrayal and anger that was almost too much to bear. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I placed the photos back into the envelope. I had to sit down, trying to steady my breathing. The quiet of the house seemed to amplify the storm raging inside me. Every corner of our home now felt tainted by the truth that had just come to light. As I sat there, trying to calm the turmoil within me, I knew that things would never be the same. The woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we had, was shattered by this discovery. The foundation of our relationship, built on years of trust and shared experiences, had been undermined by the deceit that had been hiding in plain sight. What came next was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I had to confront Laura. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. How I would handle it, and what steps I would take, was a question I would have to answer in the days to come. But for now, all I could do was grapple with the painful reality of what I had uncovered and brace myself for the inevitable confrontation. The night after my unexpected discovery felt surreal, a haze of disbelief clouding my mind. I couldn't shake the images of Laura and Charlie from my thoughts, and I found myself replaying each photograph in vivid detail. Each snapshot was a painful reminder of the betrayal I was grappling with. I knew I couldn't confront Laura yet. I needed more evidence, something irrefutable to support what I now feared was the undeniable truth. With that determination, I set my plan into motion. The first step was to gather information. I wanted to understand the extent of their relationship and the timeline of their deceit. I recalled the times when Laura had mentioned Charlie, how she often spoke of him as a good friend from college. But now, those innocent anecdotes felt like veils hiding the reality of their connection. I began my surveillance the very next day. Laura had a relatively predictable routine, and I decided to track her movements discreetly. I took a day off work under the pretense of feeling unwell. A small white lie that allowed me to observe her without raising suspicion. As I settled into my car parked across the street from our home, a mix of adrenaline and dread coursed through me. My heart raced, and I felt an overwhelming sense of anxiety. Was I prepared to see the truth unfold before me? The morning passed slowly, each minute dragging as I watched for any sign of her leaving. Finally, around noon, I saw her emerge from the front door, her hair cascading over her shoulders as she adjusted her sunglasses. She looked carefree, as if nothing in the world could disturb her bliss. It felt like a cruel contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I followed her, keeping a safe distance. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions as I drove through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, trailing behind her car. My heart pounded in my chest as we passed the local cafe, where I had seen the photo of them together. She pulled into a parking lot a few blocks away, and I parked my car a short distance behind her. Trying to remain inconspicuous, Laura spent some time inside the cafe, chatting animatedly with her friends. I felt a mix of anger and helplessness as I watched her laugh, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. But I couldn't afford to lose focus. I was here for a reason. My resolve strengthened as I scanned the area, searching for any sign of Charlie. After about an hour, I noticed a familiar figure approaching the cafe, Charlie. My stomach dropped as I watched him stroll toward the entrance with an easy confidence that made my blood boil. They exchanged warm greetings, and I felt a surge of rage coursing through me as I witnessed the chemistry between them firsthand. It was evident that their connection was more than just friendship. I felt trapped in a nightmare as I watched them sit together at a small table on the patio, their hands brushing against each other. I had half a mind to confront them right then and there, but I knew I needed to gather more evidence. I pulled out my phone, discreetly capturing photos of them together. My hands shaking as I snapped each picture. The thought of what I was doing felt invasive, but I reminded myself that I was fighting for the truth. As they shared laughter and whispered secrets, I became hyper-aware of every small gesture. The way Laura leaned in closer to Charlie, the sparkle in her eyes that I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. Each moment felt like a dagger to my heart. After a while, they left the cafe and walked down the street, still engrossed in conversation. I followed them again, keeping a safe distance while my mind raced with possibilities. They wandered, visiting shops and stopping at another cafe for dessert. I watched as Charlie playfully wiped a smudge of cream from Laura's cheek, and my breath caught in my throat. This was more than just a fling, it was a deep, emotional connection that I was no longer a part of. As the sun began to set, they made their way to a nearby park. I found a secluded bench where I could observe without drawing attention to myself. My heart raced as I prepared to document whatever came next. They sat on a bench together, sharing intimate conversations and stolen glances. I snapped more photos, capturing every moment of their betrayal. Just as I thought the day couldn't get any worse, I saw them stand up and head toward a secluded area of the park. I knew I couldn't let this opportunity slip away. I followed them cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. I crept behind a tree, straining to hear their conversation. What I overheard was enough to send chills down my spine. "I missed this," Laura said softly, her voice tinged with longing. "It feels like we're back in college." Charlie replied, "It's always been you, Laura. You know that, right?" I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, the weight of their words crushing my spirit. My worst fears were being confirmed, and I knew I needed to confront Laura. But I had to wait until I had enough evidence to shatter the facade she had maintained for so long. As dusk settled, I reluctantly made my way back to my car, the images I had captured weighing heavily in my mind. The day had felt like a twisted roller coaster of emotions, betrayal, anger, and a deep sense of loss. I had what I needed now, a tangible record of the affair, and I felt both empowered and heartbroken. Once I reached home, I sat in the darkness of my living room, my heart still racing from the day's events. I knew that I had to confront Laura, but I also knew I needed to approach this carefully. I had to gather my thoughts, compose myself, and prepare for the storm that was about to unfold. The truth was out there, and soon enough, I would make it known. The hours that followed my surveillance felt like an eternity. I sat in the dim light of my living room, the evidence of Laura's betrayal weighing heavily on my mind. The photos I had taken lay scattered on the coffee table in front of me, each one a painful reminder of the love and trust that had been shattered. My hands trembled as I picked one up, staring at the image of Laura and Charlie, their smiles bright and carefree. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. How could she do this to me? 15 years of marriage, built on promises and shared dreams, now felt like a lie. The realization that she had been cheating on me with her ex-boyfriend for all those years crushed me. I thought I knew her, knew us. The laughter, the late-night conversations, the plans for the future, They all felt meaningless now. I felt lost in a fog of disbelief and betrayal. My emotions swung like a pendulum from shock to anger. One moment, I was numb, replaying the memories of our life together, and the next, I was seething with rage, imagining the two of them together, laughing at the expense of my trust. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make this pain go away. But instead, I sat there in silence, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. After what felt like hours of wallowing in my despair, I realized I couldn't carry this burden alone. I needed to talk to someone, to share my pain and confusion. I reached for my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the name I knew I could count on: Mark, my best friend since college. He had always been my confidant, the one I turned to in times of need. I dialed his number, my heart racing as I waited for him to pick up. "Hey, Michael, what's up?" Mark answered, his voice cheerful. "Can we meet?" I said, trying to keep my tone steady, but I could hear the tremor in my voice. "Sure, man, is everything okay?" "Not really," I replied, my voice cracking. It's important." "All right, I'll be there in 20, he said, his tone shifting to concern. I hung up, feeling a mix of relief and dread. I knew that speaking to Mark would bring some clarity, but I also dreaded the weight of my words. I didn't know how to articulate the whirlwind of emotions that had taken over my life. When Mark arrived, I led him to the living room, and we both sat down. He looked at me, concern etched across his face. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's going on?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I found something about Laura," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean?" Mark asked, leaning forward, his expression serious. I pulled out the envelope with the photos and handed it to him, unable to meet his gaze. As he flipped through the images, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the sound of Mark's intake of breath. "Michael, I'm so sorry," he finally said, looking up at me with sympathy. "How long has this been going on?" 15 years, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "With her ex-boyfriend, Charlie." Mark's expression turned from concern to disbelief. 15 years? That's a long time. Are you sure? I nodded, my eyes brimming with tears. "I followed her today. I saw them together. I have photos. They've been lying to me for so long. And I can't even comprehend how she could do this." Mark sat back, taking a moment to process my words. "This is beyond messed up. I can't believe Laura would betray you like that. You don't deserve this." His words echoed in my mind, a mixture of comfort and anger. I felt my emotions boiling over. How could she do this to me? I thought we had a good life. We had plans and dreams. And all this time, she was lying to my face. Mark nodded, understanding the depth of my pain. "You need to confront her. Michael, you deserve answers. But I understand if you're not ready yet. This is a lot to take in. I don't even know how to start," I admitted, running my hands through my hair in frustration. "What do I even say? Hey, Laura, I found out you've been cheating on me for 15 years? How do you even process that?" "It's not easy," Mark said softly. "But you need to express how you feel. This isn't just about her. It's about you and your feelings. You deserve to voice your hurt and anger." I looked down at the photos again, feeling the tears spill over. I just feel so betrayed. I loved her. I thought we were a team, and that we could get through anything together. And now I feel like I don't even know her. "It's okay to feel that way," Mark reassured me. "You trusted her, and she broke that trust. You have every right to feel hurt and angry." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I just don't know what comes next. Part of me wants to confront her right now, to demand answers, but another part of me is terrified of what that will mean for us. "You don't have to decide everything right now," Mark said gently. "Take some time to process this. Talk to me, or if you need to, seek out a therapist. You need support, especially during a time like this." As the weight of his words sank in, I realized he was right. I couldn't rush into a confrontation without fully understanding my feelings and the situation. But I also knew I couldn't let this go unaddressed. I needed closure, no matter how painful it would be. "Thanks for being here, Mark," I said, my voice steadier now. "I don't know what I would do without your support." "Anytime, man. I'm here for you, no matter what," he said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We spent the next hour talking, me pouring out my feelings of betrayal, anger, and confusion. I felt a slight sense of relief with each word I spoke, as if shedding the burden of my emotions was a necessary step toward healing. But I knew that this was only the beginning of a long journey ahead. As the night wore on, I felt a flicker of determination emerging from the darkness. I would confront Laura. I would find the answers I needed, no matter how painful the truth might be. I owed it to myself to seek clarity and, eventually, reclaim my life from the chaos she had brought into it. The days that followed my conversation with Mark felt like a blur. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. Each time I looked at Laura, a part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, to demand answers and express my pain. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wanted my revenge to be calculated and impactful. I needed her to feel the weight of her betrayal, and I wanted everyone to know the truth. I spent long nights tossing and turning, contemplating how to execute my plan. I envisioned a public revelation, something that would shake Laura to her core. It would be a family gathering. A moment when all of our loved ones would be present: friends, family, everyone who had witnessed our life together. This was no longer just about me, it was about making sure Laura's lies were exposed to those who mattered most. I picked up my phone and started drafting a guest list. I wanted to make sure that everyone who had supported us as a couple would be there, everyone who had celebrated our milestones, shared our happiness, and thought they knew the truth about our marriage. I wanted to create an environment where there would be no escape for Laura, where the facade of our happy life could be ripped away in front of everyone. I decided to host the gathering at my parents' house. They had a spacious backyard that could comfortably accommodate our family and friends. The idea of holding the event there felt fitting, as it was where so many of our family gatherings had taken place over the years. I could already picture the sun setting over the garden, the laughter of our loved ones filling the air. And then, bam, the truth crashing down like a tidal wave. Once I had a rough idea of the guest list and location, I began to focus on the logistics. I wanted this evening to feel special, to draw people in and make them feel comfortable. I decided to prepare a barbecue, something casual yet inviting. I could grill burgers, hot dogs, and a variety of sides, enough to keep everyone satisfied and the atmosphere relaxed. In the days leading up to the event, I worked tirelessly to pull everything together. I coordinated with my parents to ensure they would be there to help with the preparations. My mom was excited about the gathering, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. I managed to maintain a facade of normalcy, chatting with her about recipes and decoration ideas, all the while my mind was racing with thoughts of the revelation I was planning. I sent out the invitations, making sure to mention that it was a casual get-together. Everyone was eager to attend, and I could already feel the anticipation building. As the day of the gathering approached, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would Laura suspect anything? Would she pick up on my unusual behavior? I had to keep my emotions in check, maintaining a cool demeanor as I navigated through these final days. On the day of the gathering, I woke up early to ensure everything was in order. I headed to the grocery store, stocking up on supplies for the barbecue. As I wandered through the aisles, I found myself lost in thoughts about the impending confrontation. What would Laura's reaction be? Would she deny everything, or would she crumble under the weight of her lies? I knew that no matter her response, I had to stay strong and committed to my plan. By the time I returned home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I spent the afternoon prepping the food, marinating the meats, and chopping vegetables for the sides. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over everything. My heart raced with a mix of anticipation and dread, but I pushed those feelings aside, focusing instead on the tasks at hand. As the guests began to arrive, I greeted each one with a smile, hiding my true feelings behind a mask of hospitality. I watched Laura as she interacted with everyone, laughing and chatting, blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. It made my skin crawl to see her so carefree, knowing what I had planned. Once everyone was settled, I took a moment to survey the gathering. Friends and family were mingling, sharing stories, and reminiscing about old times. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and laughter, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I felt the weight of the moment looming, knowing that soon everything would change. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the backyard, I decided it was time to put my plan into action. I called for everyone's attention, my heart racing as I prepared to make my announcement. I could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of curiosity and anticipation among the guests. "Thank you all for coming today," I began, my voice steady yet filled with underlying emotion. "I wanted to gather everyone here for a reason. I think it's important that you all hear the truth about my marriage to Laura." The room fell silent, all eyes on me. I could see the confusion and concern written across their faces, but I pressed on, determined to reveal what had been hidden for far too long. "Laura has been unfaithful to me for the past 15 years. She has been having an affair with Charlie," I announced, my voice echoing in the stillness of the yard. Gasps erupted from the crowd as shock rippled through the group. I felt a rush of adrenaline, knowing I had their attention. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment where the truth could no longer be denied. I watched as Laura's face drained of color, her expression shifting from shock to horror. It was as if time had frozen, and I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on us. I was ready for this confrontation, ready for the truth to be revealed, and ready to expose the lies that had plagued our lives for too long. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as I stood before our gathered friends and family, my heart racing like a drumbeat in my chest. I could feel the weight of every gaze on me, a mixture of confusion and concern flickering across their faces. Laura stood beside me, her expression shifting from casual amusement to apprehension as she sensed the gravity of the moment. "Thank you all for coming today," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's something important I need to share with you all, something that has been weighing heavily on my heart." I took a deep breath, my eyes scanning the crowd. Everyone was silent, their attention fixed on me, and I knew this was my moment to expose the truth. "Laura has been unfaithful to me for the past 15 years, I announced, my voice cutting through the thick air. "She has been having an affair with Charlie." A shocked gasp rippled through the crowd, and I could see the disbelief etched on their faces. Laura's expression twisted into one of horror, her hands trembling as she turned to face me. The color drained from her face, and I could see her mouth moving, trying to formulate a response, but the words were lost in the shock of the moment. I pulled out the envelope with the photographs I had taken, holding them up for everyone to see. "I have proof," I declared, my voice rising with emotion. "For years, I thought we had a solid marriage. But all this time, Laura has been living a lie. She was with Charlie while pretending to be my wife." As I displayed the photos, I watched the reactions of our friends and family. Some looked on in disbelief, while others expressed outrage. My parents exchanged concerned glances, their faces a mix of shock and sadness. My sister stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth, while a few of our friends looked like they were about to burst into tears. Laura, recovering from the initial shock, stepped forward. "Michael, please, this isn't what it looks like," she pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. "You don't understand," but I was resolute. "You've been lying to me for years, Laura. You can't deny it anymore. The truth is out. You have betrayed me in the worst possible way." The murmurs began, a low hum of voices among the guests, each one grappling with the reality of what they had just heard. Some whispered among themselves, while others shot me looks of disbelief or sympathy. Charlie stood at the edge of the crowd, his expression a mix of guilt and defiance. I could see he was struggling to find the right words, but there were none. "Is this true, Laura?" one of our friends finally asked, breaking the silence. "Have you been cheating on him?" I didn't mean for it to happen," Laura stammered, her voice trembling. "Charlie and I were friends first. We lost touch for a while, but things happened, it was a mistake." "A mistake?" I interjected, my anger boiling over. "A mistake is a fleeting moment of weakness. 15 years of betrayal is a choice. You made a choice, and now everyone deserves to know the truth." The atmosphere turned electric, a mixture of shock and judgment filling the air. People began to express their opinions, some in support of me, others siding with Laura. A few of our friends turned to Charlie, demanding an explanation. "Why would you do this, man?" one of them asked, his voice laced with anger. "You knew she was married." Charlie's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he finally managed to say, his voice barely audible. "It just happened." The scene unfolded like a dramatic play, with emotions running high and accusations flying. Laura stood frozen, her facade of composure shattered as the reality of her actions hit home. I watched as the people I once considered friends struggled to reconcile the image of the happy couple they thought they knew with the dark reality I had just revealed. As the chaos continued, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over me. Yes, I wanted to expose Laura, to force her to face the consequences of her actions, but I hadn't fully anticipated the fallout. The guests were no longer just observers, they were participants in this painful revelation, and I was unsure how to navigate the aftermath. In the days following the revelation, I was thrust into a whirlwind of reactions. The initial shock had worn off, but the aftermath was just beginning. I received countless messages and calls from friends and family, each one expressing their views on what had transpired. Some offered their support, while others criticized my decision to expose Laura in such a public way. My parents, visibly shaken, reached out to me. "We understand why you did what you did, but maybe there was a better way," my mother said gently. "You didn't just hurt Laura, you've hurt yourself and everyone who cares about you." I struggled to process their words. Did I make a mistake? Had I gone too far? The questions gnawed at me as I faced the reality of my actions. I had wanted to assert my strength and reclaim my life, but in doing so, I had unleashed a torrent of pain, not just for Laura but for everyone involved. Mark remained my steadfast ally through it all. "You did what you needed to do," he reassured me. "You can't let her lies continue to fester. You deserve to stand up for yourself." His support was a balm to my wounded spirit, but the conflicting voices around me left me feeling isolated. Friends I had known for years seemed to be taking sides, and I felt the chasm of betrayal widening. Some friends distanced themselves from me, unable to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the person who had exposed a painful truth. As I navigated the fallout, I was struck by the gravity of the situation. I had lost not only my marriage but also a part of myself. The trust I had placed in Laura was shattered, and I found it difficult to open up to others. My confidence had taken a hit, and I felt vulnerable, like a raw nerve exposed to the world. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself grappling with the consequences of my decision. I attended family gatherings where the tension was palpable. I could feel the whispers and the sideways glances, the awkwardness that hung in the air like a dark cloud. Some family members chose to confront me about my actions, questioning whether I had handled things the right way. "Michael, you need to think about how this affects everyone," my uncle said during one particularly tense dinner. "We're all family, and now there's division because of this. Was it worth it?" I didn't have a satisfactory answer. In my heart, I knew I had acted from a place of pain and anger, but I also knew that the truth had to come out. I had chosen to confront the lies head-on, but the collateral damage was greater than I had anticipated. As I sat alone one evening, reflecting on the choices I had made, I began to recognize the complexity of the situation. I felt a mix of grief for the marriage I had lost and anger at Laura for her betrayal. But I also felt a sense of empowerment, knowing I had taken control of my narrative, no matter how painful that control had come at a cost. In the following weeks, I started to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I focused on my job and my interests, trying to rediscover the parts of myself that had been overshadowed by my marriage. It was a challenging process, and some days felt unbearably heavy. But through it all, I learned to lean on the support of those who truly cared for me. I realized that healing would take time, and the consequences of my actions would linger. But I was determined to move forward, not just for myself, but for the future I still hoped to build, free from the shadows of the past. As the dust began to settle from the storm of revelations, I found myself standing at a crossroads, staring into the uncertain future that lay ahead. The fallout from exposing Laura had shaken my world to its core, and I was left grappling with the consequences of my actions. It was during this tumultuous time that I began to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about myself, my priorities, and my goals. In the initial weeks following the party, I felt lost. My mind was a chaotic mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness, but beneath it all lay an undercurrent of hope. I realized that I had a unique opportunity to redefine my life. The marriage I had built for over a decade was gone, but I was still here. And I still had the chance to carve out a new path for myself. I started by reflecting on what truly mattered to me. For years, I had devoted myself to my marriage, often placing Laura's needs and desires above my own. I had sidelined my dreams and ambitions, thinking that happiness would come from maintaining a facade of a perfect life. Now, with that illusion shattered, I found myself yearning for something more genuine, a life where I could pursue my passions and interests without compromise. One afternoon, as I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee in hand, I began to make a list of things I had always wanted to do but had neglected over the years. I wrote down everything that came to mind: traveling to new places, learning how to play the guitar, taking up hiking, and even dabbling in painting. Each item on the list felt like a seed of potential waiting to be nurtured. The more I wrote, the more I felt a sense of excitement building within me. This was not just a list, it was a manifesto for a new beginning. I realized that I wanted to embrace life fully, to dive into experiences that would help me grow and evolve as a person. The thought of pursuing my interests reignited a spark of motivation within me that had long been dormant. With my list in hand, I set out to rediscover myself. The first step was to get active. I signed up for a local gym and began to incorporate fitness into my daily routine. I had always been somewhat athletic, but my dedication had waned during my marriage. Now, as I pushed myself through workouts, I felt a rush of endorphins that lifted my spirits. The physical exertion became a form of therapy, a way to channel my frustrations into something productive. I also reconnected with old friends, those who had drifted away during my marriage. It felt good to surround myself with people who had known me before I lost myself in the complexities of married life. We met for dinners and weekend outings, reminiscing about old times and sharing laughter. Their support reminded me of the person I used to be, someone full of life and passion. I realized that I had a network of people who cared about me, and that realization alone was incredibly grounding. In addition to rekindling friendships, I decided to explore my creative side. I enrolled in a painting class at a local community center. The first time I stepped into the studio, I felt a rush of anxiety mixed with excitement. I hadn't picked up a paintbrush in years, and I wasn't sure if I still had any talent left. But as I began to mix colors and experiment on the canvas, I found a sense of freedom. Painting became an outlet for my emotions, a way to express the turmoil I had been through without needing to articulate it in words. As I embraced new hobbies and experiences, I started to feel a renewed sense of confidence. I learned to appreciate the little moments: the warmth of the sun on my skin during a hike, the satisfaction of completing a workout, and the joy of creating something beautiful on canvas. Each experience reinforced the idea that I could build a life that was truly my own. I also started setting goals, both short-term and long-term. I wanted to travel, to explore places I had always dreamed of visiting. I saved up money for a solo trip to a national park, where I could immerse myself in nature and reflect on my journey. The thought of venturing out into the world alone was both terrifying and exhilarating, but I knew it was a step I needed to take to continue my growth. The journey of self-discovery wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of doubt and sadness, especially when I reflected on the life I had lost with Laura. But I learned to embrace those feelings as part of the healing process. I began to understand that growth often comes from discomfort and that it was okay to feel vulnerable. As the months passed, I felt a profound shift within me. I had transformed from a man defined by betrayal to one who was reclaiming his life. The scars of my past will always be a part of me. But I was determined not to let them define my future. With each new experience, I was laying the groundwork for a life filled with purpose and meaning, a life where I could finally be true to myself. I began to look forward to each day with a sense of optimism. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that I was ready to embrace it, to step into the future with courage and resolve. I had started to rediscover the joy of living, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about what was to come. As the seasons changed, so did my perspective on life. The weight of the past gradually lifted, replaced by a sense of lightness and possibility. I had spent months reshaping my identity, rediscovering my passions, and forging connections that felt authentic. Each day felt like a blank canvas, inviting me to paint my future with bold strokes. With summer in full swing, I decided it was time to embark on the solo trip I had long dreamed of. I packed my bags and set out for the national park I had chosen, an expansive wilderness where I could immerse myself in nature and reflect on my journey. The drive was invigorating. I cranked up the music and sang along, feeling a newfound freedom as I cruised down the open road. When I arrived, the beauty of the landscape took my breath away. Towering mountains framed the horizon, while vibrant wildflowers carpeted the ground. I spent my days hiking through serene trails, breathing in the crisp air, and soaking in the tranquility that surrounded me. Each step felt like a reaffirmation of my commitment to embrace life, a reminder that I was no longer defined by my past. In the evenings, I sat by the campfire, watching the stars twinkle overhead. I took out my journal and reflected on the transformation I had undergone. I wrote about the pain of betrayal but also about the resilience that had emerged from it. I documented my dreams and aspirations, envisioning a future filled with adventures and joy. Upon returning home, I found myself inspired to take my newfound zest for life further. I began to explore the idea of new relationships, not just romantically but also socially. I reached out to acquaintances and joined community groups that aligned with my interests. I signed up for a local photography class, eager to learn a new skill and meet like-minded individuals. The more I put myself out there, the more I realized that the world was filled with opportunities waiting to be seized. It was during one of these classes that I met Sarah. She was vibrant and full of life, with a contagious laugh that instantly drew me in. As we shared stories and engaged in lively discussions about our artistic pursuits, I felt a connection I hadn't experienced in years. It was refreshing to engage with someone who was open and genuine, untainted by the shadows of my past. Our friendship blossomed, and I found myself looking forward to our time together. We explored local galleries, attended music festivals, and embarked on spontaneous adventures. Each moment spent with Sarah was a reminder that I was capable of happiness again, and that love could exist outside the confines of my previous marriage. As I ventured deeper into this new chapter of my life, I also made a conscious effort to nurture my personal growth. I continued to paint, capturing the landscapes and moments that inspired me. My artwork became a form of therapy, a way to process my experiences and channel my emotions into something beautiful. I even participated in a local art show, proudly displaying my pieces for the community to see. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the pain of the past had not been in vain. It pushed me to confront my fears, embrace my true self, and seek out the life I genuinely desired. I had learned to value authenticity and to prioritize my well-being above all else. As autumn approached, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The leaves began to change, mirroring the transformation I had undergone. I embraced the season of change, welcoming the unknown with open arms. I understood that while my past would always be a part of me, it no longer held power over my future. One evening, as I stood on my balcony watching the sunset, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I was finally free from the weight of betrayal, free to pursue my dreams, and free to open my heart to new possibilities. The colors of the sky reminded me of the vibrant life I was creating, and I smiled at the thought of what lay ahead. In that moment, I made a promise to myself, to live fully, to love deeply, and to never shy away from the beauty that life had to offer. I had embarked on a journey of self-discovery, and while I couldn't predict every twist and turn, I was ready to face whatever came next with courage and grace. With a heart open to love and a spirit eager for adventure, I stepped into my new life, ready to embrace the endless possibilities that awaited me. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in years, I felt excited to see where it would lead.